Well, I can tell you exactly what you do. And this is key. When you get one of these old saws and it's got this kind of compression, when it does that, I don't care what the brand is. That's a pretty good motor, isn't it? At least we think it is. This one's known to have a problem with screws in the muffler mount system, whatever. We'll fix that. That's why it's actually here. I'm just doing him a favor. Eric, I like your saw, man. It's junk. It's not worth fixing. I'll trade you for another saw, whatever you want. No, just kidding, buddy. This is your saw. I told you I'd fix it. I will. And we will. But you don't check just why it's here. Or if I would have just purchased this or traded for it or have it donated or whatever. Check your intake boot. I'm telling you, do it. Check your impulse line if it has one. Might just as well bite it in the butt and put crank seals in it, because this series saw came out in 1980. Okay, just do yourself that favor. You think, oh, it runs perfect. Right this second it does. I know this saw will run nice. I know. And it better. It's for an unknown saw, that's king of saws. At 1980. I have a feeling this is like an 83, 84 model, maybe, is what I think. So, I'll pull the top lid off, pull the carb off, check the intake boot. We'll throw a set of seals into it, make sure we have an impulse line. Everything rubber deteriorates over time, you know what I mean? Yeah, think of that. And we'll fix the muffler. We will run this saw in the wood, then give it back to Eric. This is what we're going to do. Unless he finds something he likes a little better than we have, then we might keep it. Just teasing, Eric. I know you like the saw a lot. For 18 and a half pounds, is that what it weighs? Wow. They were men. Yeah. Men were men and boys run scared. But boys like this run these heavy saws. I'll tell you why I never seen the 048 here. You're going to laugh at this one. Stihl was ahead of the curve all the time. Husqvarna was trying to keep up. At that time, they couldn't. Now Husqvarna's blowing Stihl out of the water. I'm sorry. Just call it what it is. I love my Stihls, but I love my Husqvarnas. It's like this weird balance between them two companies. Always has been. This has the same exact bore stroke as the 046 Stihl. Now, isn't that something? 76.7 cc saw. But it's heavy. 1980. You gotta think 1980. But don't think these little farm bosses and 041 AVs weren't. They're pretty heavy. Boy, we thought they was just one heck of a lot of power, them 041s. Until Dad got his hands on this 045 Super that I blowed up. And I'll bet you I know why that blew up. I'll bet you, even though the intake was not leaking, because I checked it before I ran it, it started leaking when I started running it. See, this is why I know this stuff, because bad things happen to good saws, just like they do to good people. Did you ever notice that? Real good people, they have bad things happen. It's the way it is. That's life. So we're going to give it the once over to go through, make sure things are great. Now, if something had happened in the last 5-10 years, somebody put crank seals in this, you'll know, because they'll be nice and soft and pliable. But if you take the end of your file and you just kind of touch them, you can tell whether they're nice and soft because they'll kind of weep up around the crank. If it don't, you better change them. Just voice of experience, guys. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so what were they thinking when they built these? And the reason why I never seen them before. Never had one around me. Never did. Well, I'll tell you what it is. In 1980, when this saw was released in this region, if you got to remember the company or the country's economy, well, let's just put it was about as bad as it is now. But there wasn't a job market. There was not. about 5 years, 80 to 85 anyway, was tough job market. Log prices were in the dumpster. They were. So, that was a big driving force why I went in the military when I did, is I could go get a skid row job, and it might be temporary or farm work that just for seasonal or something. I hustled. Going in the military had its downfalls. It's 90% suck. Embrace the suck. Live for that 10%. You gain a lot of friends. That's the nice things. There wasn't any way that I was logging. Number one, I couldn't afford to buy these saws. For what the dollar value was, saws were very expensive, especially something like this. Loggers were not buying new saws that were still in business. They were getting through bad times. This is what they were doing, so we didn't see them. I was really surprised. I'm sure other regions in the country you've seen these, but not here. We didn't see them. We just didn't. But by 86, 87, then I was out of the service. There was jobs. In fact, when I got out of the military, I went home a day or two, and the phone was ringing right off the hook. I was using my parents' phone as a message phone. Everybody knew it. Of course, living in these small communities like this, they talk to my dad, hey, heard your son's home from the military. Does he want a job? Everybody knows everybody. If you're known that you were a good worker, and your family was good workers and they were known, people wanted you. You didn't have job applications. You didn't have 20 interviews. You didn't have to show a college degree in advanced finger painting just so that you could get a job. They wanted you. They beat a path to you. You didn't have to work too hard at it. But before that, when this saw was made, it wasn't like that. It was rough. So, I don't know how much of it I'm going to cover. I just want to show this and bring some of the finer points. Where this saw was headed was unusual because, quite honestly, with a 36 millimeter stroke and a 52 millimeter bore, that is not the way stihl went. They did not. Not at this time. This was an advanced saw for stihl to build. But the styling, if you see, slope back, trying to get a little bit more into the modern world. Definitely difference from that. And headed this direction. Isn't this interesting? Headed in this direction. So it's comparable. Yeah, the 044 come out in 1993. I had one of the first ones. In fact, I think I might have had like the second or third one sold in our region at our local saw shop. Dave Sissons, over in Bolivar. A lot of you guys know who that is. I'm really surprised how many local people, I'm talking in this county or something, that watch this channel that I run into. Always a pleasure to meet you. Wonderful people here. There really is. People think New York, they think concrete, blacktop, and skyscrapers. Not here. That's New York City. We don't own New York City. They own us. Yep. Tiny little place all the way to the end of the map. The rest of New York, rural New York, is gorgeous. If you've never been through New York, you should at least drive through it once. It's just a beautiful place. It really is. Especially up there in the Adirondacks. Yeah, my region where I live here, Steuben County, just freaking phenomenal. This is pretty. But it's like any place, It would have grown up if New York would have had the common sense to try to keep the population here. Yeah, they're changing the rules all the time faster than we can keep track of them. And I don't care. Fine. Do what you want. I worry about our children, our grandchildren, stuff like that. I worry about that. Well, even for the country. I shouldn't get into none of that stuff. That could be a huge argument, couldn't it? Yeah, it could. Okay, so I know these screws haven't been out in a very long time. I'm going to at least lift the lid while I got it here on the bench. See what I need. I have no parts for this. None. Unless we get lucky. We're stroking crankshafts. Building a 94cc 372 for Buck and Billy for his Paul Bunyan road trip. I'm looking forward to seeing every one of you that's going to Sawfest in Marysville, Ohio, the 13th and 14th of October. I'm getting quite a list of all of you that's going. Oh boy, I'll tell you what, I'm having a great fun with this Sawfest already, and I'll tell you why. Their cheap saw build off is that little wild thing, which, if you notice, there's a lot of them cropping up on the internet now, or on YouTube. Watching people build these, their successes and their failures. And I know one thing, when I picked up that freaking jug I got right here, of that wild thing, it's like, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this? This, that wild thing build is going to separate the men from the boys on building. I'm going to tell you that right now. Let's just see where that heads. I don't think anybody is going to have a monster saw. I think what we're going to have is a lot of people having just a heck of a good time with a little green and purple saw. This is what it is. So, away we go. Well, I can tell you one thing. The intake on this appears to be soft and pliable. You notice this funky little ignition switch? Isn't that remind you a lot like the 44, 46, 66 mag? I like the toggle switch with a separate choke switch on top a lot better from the 041, 045, stuff like that. But stihl was advancing. They was doing what they thought might be best. I can tell you another thing is, if you ever lost one of these, you'd be in trouble. This machined air cleaner holder screw. I had a bugger of a time getting them bolts out of that air cleaner cover. They hadn't been out in a long time. Took a little bit of spraying and beating and frame and just a little tip, tip, tap, 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 tap. Come out. Yeah, that right there, boy, don't lose that. That'd be bad. It would. It's got an inner and outer for an air cleaner. Wow, you know something? This is really interesting. I don't know if I can get that where you can see it. Maybe I can. It has the same setup for an impulse line under the carburetor right there. See that? It's a 66 mag. Fuel line, very much the same. Throttle linkage is different, and I just got it unhooked, so that was pretty easy. But I could actually put a 66 mag carb on this, and I know it. This is pretty interesting. Well, if that ain't just the darndest thing the way that works, unbelievable. Fuel line. The fuel line is nice and soft. Impulse line, nice and rubbery, nice and soft. Okay, we just went through a few steps. It's important for making them run in longevity. You know what's funny? This little, what this is for is the rubber where you put your screw to adjust your high and low jack. What I found interesting is right here on top is where your throttle screw is to adjust the RPMs idling. And it has this cute little notch right here in the top. That even looks like a 66 mag cylinder. Boy, I wonder. Boy, that could get scary quick, couldn't it, guys? Oh, that ain't my saw. Guys, See the blue smoke? I should have started this on camera. It was freaking funny. It was, yeah, it was funny. The way the throttle lever works, it just hooks over a little notch on the carburetor, like a little post. But when you pull the trigger, it can fall right off, which I showed that to you. Well, the stihl's answer to holding that on there and still be able to get it apart. They wanted you to be able to work on the saw. They wanted you to. They use the bottom of the air cleaner. See the little rod in there? They use the bottom of the air cleaner to hold that down. If it tries to come up, it comes up, touches the bottom, and they've got a little wear piece there so that it doesn't rub through. Wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. I've seen Huskies, the older Huskies, have some of the same things. They really build them for you to work on. This new crap, you don't have my attention, Stihl or Husqvarna. You don't. No, you lost me. Absolutely freaking lost me. Auto tune, fuel injection. You know what? I don't even like vehicles with that on because I'm a dumbass. I don't know how to work on that stuff. Well, I know. My problem is I know just enough to get me in a lot of trouble. Thank God I got people I pick the phone up. Hey, what did I just do to this darn thing? Interesting. It has an outboard clutch. See? That was an improvement in my eyes. Oh, I know the argument. Well, the clutch holds heat, you know, in there, blah, blah, blah. Outboard clutch don't. That's why a lot of saw it. I don't care. I like this. If it works, good. I got oil all over me. It didn't start. Yes, I'm going to start it for you. I'm not going to run it long because we're not sure whether it does have a muffler leak. If it is, it's small. It's not a big one, so I'm not concerned. But I'll start it for you. I did a little bit of tuning on this. I can't finish until we get everything buttoned up completely. No, this can be the way it is. And we're going to run this one in the wood on video, along with about 4 others of your guys' saws. I'm really impressed. I really am. If you want to know the truth, I'm dumbfounded. Absolutely dumbfounded this thing started. But, just like I told you, I made sure that I had an intake that is valid. Impulse, fuel line is good. Don't know about the crank seals. I know it wouldn't have started. This started in 4 freaking pulls. All I did was set the carburetor back to the factory specs. 4 pulls. This thing was running. 4 pulls. I'm impressed. 1 pull. I run that a minute or 2, enough to fog the shop up a lot. I'm really astonished. Eric, you don't need that. This, put some wheels on it, buddy. It's heavy. Yeah, you ain't gonna have to worry about this saw. It's gonna be what it is for a long time when I get done. Guarantee you that. If you want to know the truth, first one I ever seen, I'm already becoming a huge fan of these. Guys, those of you that's out there that's got the 042 or 048, have similar experience, share them with me. Hey, did you notice our lighting's off today? You notice? I had a really bad thing happen over the weekend. I have a big shelf that goes on a wall above where the camera is right now. Had a lot of chainsaws on it. I don't know what happened. The shelf came down. Chainsaws, parts everywhere. Big mess. That very bottom handle on my P51 got cracked and the piece is missing. My P41, the bottom handle is broke completely in 2. Maybe I can do some repair. I'm probably going to be looking for some parts for P41s, guys. The P51 top cover, I believe that's the one for the air cleaner cover, got a big chunk out of it, which is not a defect. It'll still run. But that was probably my fault somehow. So I don't know how. Been up there for a long time. Just decided didn't want to be there anymore. So I love it when my shop remodels itself. Yeah, what it's doing is telling me it's time to do some upgrades in here. I know I don't have the storage space that I need. I got saws sitting all over on the floor. But the worst thing is, most of them are mine, especially with a shelf gone. Oh, goodness sakes. Even old Dave went for a ride. No damage, no damage. Old Dave's my 66 Magnum. Love the saw. It's an old 56 Magnum. But I did put the blue whole form of plastic on it, red, white, and blue stars. You know. Okay, I'm going to make it for the video. I seen it for the first time. Didn't know what to think about it. The 048av. Now, I'm starting to get a real impression of what they did in 1980. I'm getting that impression. Now, bore stroke matters for me on saws. This is 5 pounds heavier than I would have liked to seen. It's heavy. So, I think that I would run this saw anyway. But 76 plus cc's, same board strokes, 046 stihl. Yes, sir. They were ahead of the curve. They knew what they were going to build 2 series from now. They used their common saws that they were building as platforms for development of new saws. Because we all know the old 56 Magnum was the platform to the 66 Magnum. Because you can put the 66 Magnum piston and cylinder on a 56 Magnum. Yes, you can. You have to use the wrist pin from the 66 Magnum because it's an 11 millimeter. And they have a little heavier bearing that goes on the small end of the rod that lets you do that. We'll do one here soon. We will. Thank you guys. Thanks for showing up. See you at Sawfest. Goodbye. Hi everybody. Glad to see you again. I hate these little breaks between videos that we get when life gets in the way, but it's a necessary evil. Gotta keep home front running first. And that's what we try to do, Colin and I. What I have here today is a very interesting saw. I never had one of these in the shop. Stihl's Forgotten Saw. The 048av. Another one is the 042av. Now, as we know, this little saw right here is an 041av. It's a very, very nice example. This is a really nice one. They used to be cheap to buy. They're not anymore. I got that one. Well, I've had that for a long time. I've also got the Farm Boss. In the 041, I'll tell you something funny. You want to hear something? This ain't exactly a story, but it's old school truth. The 041 Farm Boss was a little cheaper model of the 041av. It didn't have, it was more of a solid mount saw, that's what it was. AV was the rubber mounts. Well, those of us that started out cutting firewood, I never logged one of them. I was too young for that then when they were out. The 041av, we called it AV for Always Vibrates. The Farm Boss didn't have trouble vibrating the bolts out other than the muffler. They all did that because of the design. But the AV series would vibrate. Yeah, they would. But it didn't transfer to your hands as much. But it didn't matter back then. I've never had one of these in a saw in the shop before, these 048avs. This is Eric's saw, one of Colin's co-workers. He reached out to Colin and I talked to him and he says, I've got this saw. I've picked it up. I don't know, a relation, family, friend, whatever, hadn't run it in years and years, and I can see that it's not been run logging anyway. It hasn't been run logging. So, what do you do when you get a saw that's known to not have run in a very, very long time?